everybody in Central Ohio joining us this evening. We're so glad that you took the opportunity to come to our Transportation Improvement Program open house. We're wanting to share more with you now. First up, I'm going to try to bring William up to give us a welcome. And just hang tight because we're learning quite a bit about all this new technology working from home. So, all right, found him. Thank you for turning on your camera. And I'm going to go ahead and send you live with a welcome. This is our Executive Director, William Murdoch. There you are.
Great. Welcome, everybody. And thanks, Thea. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Great. Perfect. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm William Murdoch, the Executive Director at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. We are so appreciative of you joining us for our first virtual open house for our Transportation Improvement Program. Before we start, I want to acknowledge that this is a difficult time for so many of us, and we appreciate all of you for not just joining us, but I know you'll join me in appreciating the work of those at the front lines of public health and our local governments who are working to keep us healthy and safe. That's why we're doing this virtual, and that's why we're so appreciative of the chance to talk to you today. I'm very excited to share with you the work of our team and to thank and compliment them for pulling the good work together. It's significant work, it's significant public feedback and planning and modeling, and they've done this all remotely for you today. So being mindful of our current crisis, it's so important that we're prepared and ready for the recovery, for dealing with the needs of the recovery, but also the needs of a growing region and its transportation system, everything from making it more livable and safe. This Transportation Improvement Plan open house represents a lot of work and a lot of feedback, but we're not done. And this is your chance to learn more and to give us feedback on the plans. Before I turn it over to Thea, I also want to make sure I'm thanking our local partners. There are so many throughout the region, rural, suburban, and urban, who come together at MORPC and through CORPO to work on transportation and help the public transportation system be prepared for our future. I also want to thank our state partners at the Ohio Department of Transportation, and of course all our federal and nonprofit partners too. So with that, I know that you'll enjoy and learn a lot from the presentation that MORPC's Transportation Director Thea Walsh is about to give you. So Director Walsh, I'll turn it back to you, and thanks again, everybody. I look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you, William. We normally clap. Just kind of get started with the evening. Little bit of housekeeping. You may have already realized there's a little bit of a delay in both our video and audio, but we're just trying to make it all work. So appreciate you sticking it out with us. Also, if you do submit questions, you're going to see those answers pop up as we go from members of our team. We'll also be sharing all the questions that came to us at tip@morpc.com org via our email earlier this evening. We'll do all that at the end of the presentation. You can submit questions as we're going, but just know that we'll probably address all that at the end. So I really appreciate you being patient and definitely hearing everything. We're excited that you came to join us this evening, and we're going to go ahead and get the show started. All right, heading back over to the PowerPoint now. All right. Now if I can just advance my slide. Okay. So this is the welcome slide for the draft state fiscal year 21-24 Transportation Improvement Program for both the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, which is the urbanized area of Central Ohio, as well as the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization. I'm going to share with you what the difference is, and hopefully if you visited the website, you already know. So today's purpose is to explain the Transportation Improvement Program, what that is, review the content of the final draft that we've shared with you. Hopefully you've had a chance to do that online. And if not, you will be able to afterwards as well. Provide comments to us on both draft tips that we've supplied, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions for you too. So the first question I have to answer is, what is a TIP? A TIP is a transportation improvement program. We do update one of these every 2 years for a 4-year period. This 4-year period is 21 to 24. They are a product of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. That is MORPC. We are the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Central Ohio. We do have a fiscally balanced approach to the way that we produce a transportation improvement program. And all the projects in it are near-term projects that are also identified in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. If you've been following us quite a bit lately, you would know that we just completed our Metropolitan Transportation Plan for the horizon year of 2050 as well. So very much hand in glove right now with both of these products, which are the core things that we do in preparing Central Ohio for its transportation system future. Ultimately, as you can see here on the slide, it moves from the Metropolitan Transportation Plan to the Transportation Improvement Program to projects that you see being built. So by the time it leaves us and being built, it's on its way, and that's when you see the orange barrels go up. A little bit about the difference between the two types of plan versus program. First, they are both part of the Federal Highway Administration's continuing cooperative and comprehensive planning process that we're required to provide as a metropolitan planning organization in the United States. But I'll tell you, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan is set through the year 2050, as I mentioned earlier. We do estimate the available resources through that time frame as well. We identify the desired changes to the system, and we update that entirely every 4 years for a span of at least 20 years. What we're going to be talking to you about tonight only goes through the year 24. It is projects that are funded primarily and identify specific funding that is committed to those projects during this time frame. The projects must have been in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and move their way to the Transportation Improvement Program in order to be eligible for federal funding. And then we update this every 2 years for a 4-year period. And I didn't speak to amendments, but we rarely amend the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, but for the TIP, we amend it quarterly and sometimes more often, because once a project gets to those latter phases, there's money moving around, scope changes happening, and so that's why you see more amendments going on once the money's committed and the project's about ready to be built. So a little bit about the Transportation Improvement Program. Local government and ODOT come together as part of our boards and commissions at MORPC to build a consensus around regional priorities. This is a comprehensive list, and if you saw how long it is, you know it's a comprehensive list of transportation projects, all federally funded projects, all regionally significant projects are on the list. Also highway, transit, bikeway, pedestrian, every mode that is funded through some of these sources is covered. We try to do as much as we can to bring in a full scope of information, the actual scope for the project, the schedules, and the costs that we have estimated for the project leading into it being bidded. We communicate this information in diverse ways and to diverse parties. We're today talking to citizens, but this project, this program goes all the way up to the US DOT for approval. So everybody along the way gets to see it. So that's why it's such a significant list. And we make sure that we do such a comprehensive job at it. So where do the projects come from? viewers like you, including our local governments here in Central Ohio. They come in and work with us to go for about $37 million a year that comes into MORPC for federal funds. Transit authorities like CODA, the Delaware County Transit Authority, ODOT and their preservation, safety, major new projects, and then our local cities and counties. But as we, and why I said you, because many of you citizens around Central Ohio did comment and share with us what they wanted in the long range or metropolitan transportation plan. So many ideas make their way from that metropolitan transportation plan to this to be built. So it's a very fluid process, but a very long one too. So moving on, this is not just the Transportation Improvement Program process here in Central Ohio. It's actually a federal process, but at this point in time, the entire state of Ohio is doing a statewide Transportation Improvement Program. And so you'll see in this picture of the state of Ohio, there are green areas, which are rural, and blue areas, which are urban. And we're all working on transportation improvement programs right now. And actually, we're in the middle of our comment period, which started yesterday. So you can actually comment to ODOT about any project in any area of the state about the projects that could happen anywhere in the state. Now, these organizations listed out in acronyms on the state picture here, they are like us doing trying to do public involvement right now, and the state is as well. But there's also the states covering those gray areas as well. And just so you know, you can visit the state's website for the statewide transportation improvement program. You're going to see our projects in there, as well as all the others. So if you can only imagine, that project or that list is very long, as our document's pretty long itself. So let's talk about what makes up the content of the Transportation Improvement Program. It is a description of processes and public participation. We also have a project selection process in there. We work around a table of local communities to select projects that are in the best interest of the region for MORPC dollars, but also for others. Progress towards performance targets that are set in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, as well as ODOT has performance targets they're trying to meet. We do analysis on the impacts of projects to our air quality in Central Ohio, as well as to those of disadvantaged populations. We're not trying to create a worse situation with air quality or disenfranchise a certain set of the population by cutting them off from resources. So we always do our due diligence and take that very seriously at MORPC. We have a detailed list of projects. They're listed out individually. We also have them grouped for your convenience by different types, by year, by the different types, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'm sure you saw that on some of the maps when you were in our open house website. We also do share the status of what happened in the last TIP cycle, the last 4 years, and what projects actually happened. So that's always good to look back on. So this is the whole map of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for Central Ohio for the MORPC MPO area, which is primarily made up of Franklin, Delaware, Union, Licking, and portions of Fairfield County there. You'll see the different various types of projects, and there's no way you can actually like zoom in on this. You're going to want to actually look at the document to zoom in on your specific project of interest and its number, so you can find out more about that project and when and if it's going to be impacting your neighborhood or something of interest to you. So let's talk a little bit about year-by-year projects and what's going to be going on in Central Ohio for the next 4 years. First up is the year 2021 construction year, and these are state fiscal years, so they actually start on July 1st of 2020. So 2021 starts on July 1st for this. We have a total of $350 million there in projects. You'll see based on what's highlighted there, quite a bit on the interstate system and state US route system. Some key projects through the downtown and around the outer belt are in that listing as well. In the year 2022, we have about $295 million worth of projects ready to go. You'll see quite a bit more spread out in this case. Some continuations of projects from the year before, but quite a bit up there in Delaware County along US 23. Some more down through downtown Columbus, and a few more around the map. And I'm not going to go into details about specific projects because I know there'll be questions about that, and that my team is on here ready to answer some of those. 2023, we have $248 million worth of projects in the year 2023. You'll see those are a little bit more spread around, although we do have the bottom of 270 in the mix there, and some of the work down around Rickenbacker happening. And then in our last year of this transportation improvement program, the 2024 construction season, $115 million worth of projects. And you can see those are mostly larger scale projects identified right now. Now, it is not uncommon that during the TIP cycle, the fourth year looks a little light compared to the others. That doesn't mean we have less money in that year, or anticipating necessarily less funding. It may be that a lot of the projects are happening in the first 3 years. But then we update this in 2 years from now, you'll see this year gets filled out quite a bit too. It's just kind of a common practice with all the amendments that happen throughout the process, and additional funds that come our way in Central Ohio beyond what we know about today. So that's actually pretty exciting. So we also break down the projects based on type here. So I have maintenance and other projects or miscellaneous projects identified on the map, and you can take a look at those on our website as well. So bridge and roadway maintenance, as well as the miscellaneous. Miscellaneous can a lot of times be like multi-location type projects, or even signal type projects, so that they're harder to map sometimes, but they're on there for you to see. Then we get into the minor expansion and intersection projects. These are key connections that need to happen in the next 4 years that are funded for Central Ohio. Most of the time, this is a roadway corridor that needs to be widened to accommodate the traffic that it's going to be seeing or is already seeing, or additional turn lanes or things that are going to make traffic smoother on the system. And then we have our major expansion and interchanges, and this is where a lot of the focus on highways and the interstate comes into play. These are larger dollar projects typically, just due to the nature of the types that they are or where they're going. Just note that you may see a larger number there. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily doing that many more projects, but they are more costly projects. Some of our fan favorites here, bicycle projects. We do expect to have 58 projects for bikes and about 25 new lane miles, whether it be on multi-use paths or shoulder widenings or other modifications to the system. So certainly that's good news. Some of our best and most engaged members of the public always tell us about how they want bike projects. So we are definitely delivering on that, and of course would love to do more. Pedestrian projects also goes along with that. We're going to see 68 projects that accommodate pedestrians as part of the project. up to 26 lane miles on that, or sorry, not lane miles, but 26 miles on that as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the things that move Central Ohio. That's definitely the freight moves Central Ohio, and so we also categorize our projects based on the fact that they support that industry. So you'll see a number of projects highlighted here that do support the freight and logistics industry, and this is good news, but also as they're being built, a little bit of a headache, but at the end of the day, it means progress, seeing those orange barrels. So a couple other things ongoing that aren't specifically highlighted on the map, but we are continuing to do our Hyperloop feasibility study work. Also, Tier 1 EIS components for passenger rail, or that's environmental impact study for passenger rail. That is known as the Rapid Speed Transportation Initiative, if you're following that. Also, we've been studying the Rickenbacker area and have some implementation of projects coming out of that area, and working alongside the Columbus Region Logistics Council in their efforts to assist the industry in improving freight and logistics movements in our region. I want to touch on environmental justice and what we define as environmental justice. What we do is we take an overlay of a project area and also an overlay of specific characteristics of various census tracts, or in our cases, transportation analysis zones, based on race, color, national origin, income, to ensure that we're not having a negative impact or disproportionate impact on a specific segment of our population. It is a very involved process, but we can assure you that we do it, and we're always willing to answer more questions about it. But at the end of the day, it's all about adequate public involvement and analysis to ensure that low-income, minority, and other target populations are not impacted. You can find a lot of this information in our TIP, Appendix 3. It provides a quantitative analysis showing no environmental justice issues with this transportation improvement program. So that's the end of the MORPC Metropolitan Planning Area Transportation Improvement Program presentation. I'm going to move on to the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. So this is their first TIP, and we're super excited to roll this out. We have been working with the rural areas around Central Ohio since 2016. We helped them produce their long-range plan in 2018, and we've been working with subcommittees at the county level ever since to ensure that they get a voice at the table in the statewide planning process. So what is CORPO as compared to the Metropolitan Planning Organization? So you'll see there, the green area is the Metropolitan Planning Organization that I just spoke of, and the TIP I just spoke of. The blue area around the center urban core of Central Ohio is known as the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization. And so these are the projects that impact them. There are 7 member counties of the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization. They do have one head committee that does meet in Columbus off and on, and they do have subcommittees in each county that discuss these projects and stakeholders that get involved in helping shape these, much like we see in the development of the TIP for the Metropolitan Planning area. For the development inputs for the statewide transportation improvement program from the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization, you'll see these are the input projects. Not nearly as detailed of mapping and information, but we are starting to pull this information together for the first time, and we definitely got a good capture of what's going to be happening in the next 4 years working with the ODOT districts in this region, as well as the local governments. So For highway projects, you'll see there's a number of different resources there, the various types of federal funding that's going to be coming in for these projects from the year 21 to 24. And then if you move over to the next page, there's the other sources that come in for the projects. And basically, it's $190 million that's going to be spent on highway projects in our rural areas. And then moving on to transit projects, you'll see here, this is also the years 20 through 21, or sorry, 21 through 24. A number of Federal Transit Administration programs, they're listed. That's what those numbers are. And they say ODOT by them. That means ODOT receives the funds first. And then we have our state and local funds that match those often, and it's about $83 million. So total, you're looking at about $275 million in funds that'll be coming in for rural projects. And if I didn't mention it previously, I know I mentioned it in the web video, the MORPC in Metropolitan Planning area TIP total was $2 billion. So if you think about this as nearly a $2.3 billion list of projects for Central Ohio, that's what we're talking about here. This is a huge investment in the future of Central Ohio between all the projects we've shared with you tonight. So a little bit more information about how we go about the process of revising the TIP along the way, because this is a very much a live document that is looked at almost quarterly and sometimes more often. We do look at it on a project by project basis. If there's an amendment needed, it's mostly because there's been a major change to a project scope or funding amount. Something's been added or deleted on the project level. If it's going to have a change to the fiscal balance of the funds, basically maybe funds are being taken away from a project or more are being added, that has to be taken account of in an amendment, as well as if some project adds additional components that will impact the air quality in a negative way, we'll also need to note that and do an amendment for that. Every amendment has to be approved via resolution by our Transportation Planning Committee for the Metropolitan Planning Organization with MORPC, as well as if an amendment is needed for the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization, that would have to go through that organization and move on up to MORPC as well. Some administrative modifications can happen, minor changes that ODOT and USDOT are okay with us making changes to, or minor changes to scope or funding amounts, and there's normally limits set to that. If we split or combine projects, so you break a project into one project into two, or you make 2 or 3 projects into one, that's okay, and we can do that administratively. If you move a project from one year to another, that can be done in-house by our staff, and then those are all approved by our staff via administrative modification. So where we're at in the process, I couldn't be happier that we are at this state. February 28th, we did put out our first draft of the Transportation Improvement Program for both MORPC and the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization. On March 27th, the final draft Transportation Improvement Program was available for public comment online. And tonight you're joining us at our virtual open house for MORPC. Next, we're going to move to our Transportation Policy Committee with these tips in hand for approval. Although both of them will go through subcommittees that lead up to that. Well, I guess we'll share the drafts at the Policy Committee on the 9th, April 9th. And then we'll end our public comment period on the 26th. And then by May 14th, they will be finally approved, and that's where they'll have to go through subcommittees as well to lead up to that. So also of note, the State Transportation Improvement Program public comment period started yesterday. It ends April 10th. So that state website I shared with you, that is a place where you make comments on a state level that goes directly to ODOT. We talked to them today. Their site's up and running and they are ready to take your comments as well, whether they're on Central Ohio or another area of the state of Ohio. So what we're asking of you is simply to just review the Transportation Improvement Program by the end of the comment period on April 10th. Feel free to reach out to us at that email address we provided, the tip@morpc.org, or we also have various contacts here you can reach out to. For the MORPC tip, Thomas Graham, and that's his email address there, tgraham@morpc.org, and his phone number. And even if you're reaching a MORPC phone number, leave a message because these are being forwarded on to them, and they can reach them over their email, their messages over their email. So if they're working from home, they're still going to be able to get your call, leave a message. And they may very well be having it forwarded anyway. Also, the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization Transportation Improvement Program, Mike Borger is your contact for that, and that's his email address there and his office line for you to leave message or call him. And then for hard copies or translated materials, you'll be reaching out to Bevan Schneck, and that is his email address and office line for you to contact him. Additional information, direct websites are there for you to click on. They lead to a lot of the same information you viewed tonight. We just put it in a special format just for the open house for you to look at. So that is pretty much it, and we're going to move over to the question and answer portion of the evening, which is going to be me really staring at the screen. So just hang tight. But I'm Thea Walsh. I am the Transportation Director with the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, and I truly appreciate you spending your evening with us and learning more about the future of transportation in Central Ohio. So I'm going to go to me on the screen. We may pop in some other people if I have to have them answer a question for me. So MORPC team, be ready. So if you came in early, you heard some music, and yes, that was my playlist. We have transportation themed music. So first one, Bobby says, is this an open house for an updated plan, as in with the considerations from the first comment period, or is this just the second open house for the first comment period? And Mike Borger on our team says, hello, it is an open house on the updated plan, but we will be accepting comments on the plan until April 10th. And I think also Mike went ahead and clarified that we did have our Metropolitan Transportation Plan as well as our Transportation Improvement Program all coming through at the same time. That is a very rare event. This was just kind of where the two plans aligned in the 2-year, 4-year cycle, and we just got a really lucky year to work on both of them at the same time and to be finishing them out, trying to do that remotely, which was so fun. So somebody said, are we allowed to dance? Yes, if you were listening to the music earlier, we encourage it. If you'd rather email your questions, you do feel free. You can send them at tip@morpc.org was shared. All right, CBus Planner, is this live event being recorded? Can I watch it again later? And Bevan Schneck on the MORPC team said yes. We will post it as soon as it's available, which will be soon. It's going to have to be edited because there was a long period at the beginning where there was nothing. So an anonymous member of the public writes, is this being recorded? Okay, sorry, rereading. Bobby, what was the ODOT link again for the tip? Best for you to rewatch it. It's also at the bottom of our tip open house page. So if you look at the very bottom of that page, you're going to find that link over to ODOT's webpage. So thanks for asking that, Bobby. All right, David R. How do we, public citizens, access the plans? Links for each of the specific TIP projects listed. And then number 2, he asks, since TIP projects in the 4-year pipeline appear to be mostly designed and funded, is it too late for desired scope amendments to be changed? And he said, thank you. Nick writes back, Nick's on the MORPC team. It is best to contact the project sponsor for a particular project. So a project sponsor, in this case, if we're in the listing, it says City of Columbus, you'd want to contact the City of Columbus. And sometimes it may say ODOT District 6 or the City of Hilliard. So that is the best place to contact for changes at this point once the project's funding is committed. We can assist you with providing you with an email for the project contact. And the closer the project is to construction, the more set the scope is. So if something's out in 2024, there's a lot more you can do to change it. But if it's like July 1st, that might be a little bit more of a challenge. So keep that in mind. But chances are that's been on a plan for a while. Anonymous says, what evidence exists in favor of widening roads to improve traffic conditions? Nick Gill from our team says, the vast majority of funding in the TIP are to maintain the existing system. As a region, we are strongly working to provide more sustainable modes and development patterns. However, as a growing region, there are still bottlenecks which need to have capacity improvements to improve operations. So we do strongly encourage those sustainable opportunities. We do quite a bit around commuter programs, encouraging use of the bus system and the bike trail system. So definitely would like to see more people multimodal, and we'll do what we need to do. But we also understand that widening our roads is sometimes a nature that we have to create in order for business to be able to move through as well. So it's always something we weigh out in the process. How does the region decide how much funding goes towards each project types? For example, major widening versus transit. So Nick Gill on our team responds back and says, Section 3 and 4 in the TIP document provide information on the funding resources in the TIP and the project selection processes. So specifically with MORPC projects, that is a regional decision. There are literally people who sit around the table within the region from other from various communities around the region and make those decisions about how much funds they're going to spend on different types of projects, what's a priority, what is a regional priority as a type of project. So that is a very good question, and it's not something that is like, oh, this year we're going to focus on this, right? So it doesn't work quite like that. There's quite a bit of a discussion around it. All right, Anonymous asks, will rural road projects include wide shoulders for bicyclists? That's a good question. And Nick from the MORPC team says, we advocate for roads to be complete streets. That is true. We've had a complete street policy at MORPC for more than 10 years. It depends on the specific project and the context of the project and the type of improvement. If you're looking at something specific, contact us, then we can assist you in finding information on that particular project to ensure that we are doing our best to help it with the widening for bike and pedestrian use. And if it's not something that can be done, we can share with you why we came to that conclusion as well. David R. asks, on State Route 23, what's being done to ensure the entire corridor has consistent bicycling facilities via protected side path north of Franklin County? Sidewalks are needed and highly appreciated, but provide inadequate width and roadway is not safe for bikes to share. Columbus and Worthington did create some decent accommodations up to Lozelle Road. Nick on the MORPC team writes back, the corridor is part of our active transportation plan, and we're working with the entities along the corridor to provide appropriate facilities. The corridor to provide, sorry, I'm rereading that. If you email us, we can research specific further and provide your specifics further and provide you with more details about that area of interest. We also will reach out to the local partners, Worthington, Delaware County, talk to them in Columbus and talk to them a little bit about ways that they could modify their project if there is any ways to better accommodate. An anonymous viewer writes, I noticed that I-270 has a widening project on the map. What is the project since I thought the road was just completed last year? So Nick says, there happens to be a small amount of follow-up funding to the recently completed project. This is not additional widening. So project on 270 is not additional widening. All right, that's a duplicate, so I'm going to go on by it. And the last question from Anonymous, does MORPC have a detailed description for the Cassidy Avenue widening improvement project? So Nick on our team writes, this is description for the project listing. Cassidy Avenue from the CSX Railroad to north of East 7th Avenue is a minor widening from 2 lanes to 3 lanes and intersection modification add turn lanes at East 5th Avenue intersection and southbound left turn lane at East 7th Avenue. Also to install curb and gutter street lighting along the way. So, oh, more coming in. All right. Anonymous says, if there is a strong desire to support multimodal, does that mean we are going to see much higher financial investments in low stress bikeways? Nick writes back, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is planning for significant focus on low stress bikeways. Please see our draft Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So that's the plan that we recently adopted. So that's out there as well. That actually leads into the Transportation Improvement Program. So what we're going to see in the next 4 years is more of a focus on that low stress system. So pretty excited to see that growth and opportunity for Central Ohio. Let me see, I see a couple more questions up here. All right, I think I can answer that one. All right, I'll take these one by one. So I'm going to publish the first one. And I'm not writing the answer in, so you may not see it written. Oh. Okay. Oh, looks like I missed the Metropolitan Transportation. Okay, so somebody mentioned this is helpful and accessible. Thank you for your work. We thank you for making the comment. We appreciate that. We've learned quite a bit of new skills putting this on. Thank you, Mike, for answering that. Next, Anonymous writes, could you expand a bit on the environmental impact study for passenger rail and the process in general? Sure. So the federal process requires that you do a environmental impact study for passenger rail. So we had been looking at a corridor connecting Chicago, Columbus, and Pittsburgh. We actually have a completed study. We're going to be posting a summary of that up on our website, as well as if you want more detail, you can get the entire document. It's very long, it's multi-phase. I think the bottom line is because it is a portion of the environmental impact study, you're not going to see the complete study go up quite yet. We've got it to the point where we've identified the corridor and identified that passenger rail is feasible, but we needed to get past certain next funding levels in order to be able to advance that environmental impact study. So as funds become available for that, and we compete for federal funds for that project and work with our locals to bring dollars in for that, we will continue that environmental impact study. So that is not over. It's a continuous process to the point where we can get into a detailed design of a system. So thanks for asking that question. All right, moving along down the list. What is the goal for mileage ratios between road to bike path in Columbus? 1-to-1, as in you can get anywhere via bike, you can get via road. Cheers. I like the attitude. So Nick from our team writes back, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan has benchmarks for mileage of bikeways and for arterials and collectors streets with complete street facilities. So please check out the draft Metropolitan Transportation Plan because it does set goals for that. I don't think they're specifically 1-to-1, but we're certainly trying to advance that as far as we can. Make sure that you can get about anywhere on a bike that you can get in a car. Okay, another question added by Anonymous. If we are only in phase 1 of the feasibility study for commuter rail, how long do you think it will take for the whole feasibility study to be finished? Is the feasibility study funded locally, or who is doing the study? Thank you. So the study was, the initial study was funded locally. We did try to go after federal funds a couple years back. And one of the things we were told by the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, was to find more resources and go ahead and get started locally. So actually the fact that we got this started means that now we look much more favorable to go after federal funds to complete the environmental impact study work. So, and whether or not we get those funds, we'll continue working with local partners to fund it into to its completion as well. So, but hoping to bring back some federal funds for that initiative. Thanks for asking. All right, keep moving down. Regarding the Cassidy Avenue Improvement Project, written by Anonymous, are there any thoughts about addressing flooding from recent rains and the need for stormwater drainage improvements? Nick from the Warp C team writes back, projects will be designed to accommodate stormwater runoff according to environmental standards. I would say focusing on the flooding on the near term, definitely work with the city. But as far as when new projects go in, they do have to meet the stormwater drainage standards or we're not going to be able to fund them. So definitely fixing problems as they go along would be the goal of the projects that are in the queue. Okay. All right, well, I have another one here from a couple other people. I don't know if, I know Nick is probably typing feverishly to answer some of these. I'm going to go ahead and publish from David R. And try my best at that one, and then I'll keep going down the list. David R. asks, a number of bridge replacements and or deck widening projects do not seem to provide much of any ideal facilities to safely accommodate bike and pedestrian travelers. Ideally, 5-foot sidewalk or one side of 10 feet wide side path on other side. What's the best practice for ensuring these are complete bridges? And 2, why are painted sharrows and non-protected bike lanes still being encouraged and counted by MORPC when they have proven not to be effective to improve safety for bicyclists? Number one, on the bridges, when we can accommodate that with a bridge replacement, we certainly do try to provide guidance on the right approach to bicycle and pedestrian access. I think that's once again a specific question. I think you'll be able to also look out for our upcoming active transportation plan and how we'll continue to improve on the way that we approach these type of projects into the future. And then painted sharrows and non-protected bike lanes being encouraged and counted. So we're certainly counting them. Because they are an effort, maybe not our first choice of effort, but maybe some also for a sharrow that may be the best option we're going to have at that point in time with the project. So I know that maybe isn't the answer you want to hear, but right now it is a method. If no other better solution is out there, and I think also I will say. Some of these are active transportation plan level projects, or sorry, project questions. If any of the members of our team from our planning team want to reach out and talk more specifically with David, are here. If he wants to submit his email address and to us, we will go ahead and talk to you further about our approach in the future with bike and pedestrian routes. All right, Anonymous asks, will loss of gas tax revenue due to COVID-19 reduce vehicular travel, impact project delivery schedules for those included in the TIP? Nick says, and I agree, there may be some impacts, but it is too early to determine beyond what ODOT recently announced about one of the phases of the downtown Interbelt being delayed by about a year. So yeah, we actually did receive notification that a project that was going to start in fiscal year 2020, one of the segments of Columbus Crossroads on I-70/71 in downtown Columbus is now being moved a year back based on anticipated lower gas tax receipts. So we could see more of this. We also know that the stimulus bill had some money for transit in it too. So I think this is going to be a ride to determine exactly where we fall out in this process. We don't know, but that's why we do amendments to keep track of what project dollars are coming and going. All right, Anonymous writes, parts of Cassidy Avenue do not have sanitary sewers. Will Cassidy Avenue project address sanitary sewers, especially since some of the area is served by Columbus and Blendon Township? I will say most of the time transportation projects don't incorporate that, but the best people to ask is the city of Columbus. They would be the ones who can answer that more specifically. We do get involved with drainage for stormwater runoff as part of a project, but not sanitary. So thanks for asking that question. And we will be sharing some of these with project partners when we can. So City of Columbus will get some of these questions. Okay, I'm going to publish Anonymous on environmental standards. Nick, if you're listening, go back. Oh. Okay, where can we find the environmental standards that need to be met for the environmental impacts statement? And that's a pretty common one. Or is it a case-by-case standard? No, that is known as a NEPA process, or NEPE, National Environmental Protection Act. And it does depend on what leg of the federal government you're working with. So I'm going to assume this goes back to passenger rail. So we're meeting the NEPA qualifications for the Federal Railroad Administration. in this case, so it very much it's a case by type for sure. And then there's different levels of environmental impact statements and environmental assessments that can be done based on the impact of your project. So we're assuming that it is an impact statement, that there would be some level of impact, which is one of the highest levels you can go to. That also, doing the highest level of report ensures that you meet the grade every time, because you're going to cover all your bases, and that's what we're trying to do with passenger rail. So I'm going to go to the next question and publish that. When is the High Street? Oh, let me publish it first. All right. That's a good question, and Nick, you may want to pop in with the answer on that one. Oh, he's working on it. Okay, good, thank you. When is the High Street road construction expected to be completed? I'm assuming you're talking about downtown. And I think, yeah, he's looking for you to provide a specific project ID. Because there's a number of them. It depends on what area, but if you ask us that, we will either, if you want to go to our tip email, tip@morpc.org, or you could just even submit your email address here and Nick could write you back. But we'll gladly answer that for you because we do have that information. All right, we're going to call this one the last one, and I like it, so that makes it easy. It's a very simple one. Thanks, best of success all, and please stay healthy. That's true for all of you too. I hope everyone at Central Ohio stays healthy, socially distanced as much as you can while we're getting through this, and hopefully then that means we can all get back out and enjoy ourselves. So definitely encourage you all to, while you're socially distancing, get outside and do take a walk or take a bike ride responsibly, as might be a good time to see with low traffic to do that. All right, so we'll go ahead and go after this. This is a clarification of the question before. I'll go ahead and take it since it is, and they were specifically, Nick, talking about the Short North High Street construction. When is that expected to be completed? He is working on that post right now, and this will be the last one. All right. We would need to talk to the city to get the answer. Okay, well, thank you. So we're going to have to find that information for you. So sorry that I was under the impression that we would be able to get that. So I appreciate everyone's time this evening and being engaged on this process. It looks like we have a couple more questions coming in, but we're coming into the end at this point. We will work to post additional answers to our questions up on our website. Thank you for joining us this evening in Central Ohio. I hope this was as good as that live in-person meeting we like to have. If you have further questions, tip@morpc.org, and our team's prepared and ready to answer those questions. Thank you, and stay well, Central Ohio.